Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewige. The top stories tonight. President Tinubu signs bilateral agreements with Turkey on day 2 of his diplomatic visit in Ankara. Presidency seeks Senate amendment of Federal High Court and Court of Appeal Acts to increase number of justices and judges. And Governor Walz meets border Caesar, calls for ends to deadly shootings as patrol agents set to depart Minneapolis. In business, Nigeria's gas output rises 8%, climbs by 198 billion standard cubic feet amid elevated flaring.
And in sports, Nigeria Football Federation mourns passing of father of Super Eagles captain Wilfred Ndidi, who died in tragic circumstances.
Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight in Ankara, the Turkish capital, where President Bola Tinubu has signed a strategic cooperation agreement with President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan to strengthen ties between both countries. Erdoğan had welcomed President Tinubu with an official ceremony in the capital. Tinubu's motorcade was greeted by 103 cavalry units on the avenue leading to the presidential complex, symbolizing the 103rd anniversary of the Turkish Republic. The ceremony was attended by senior Turkish officials, including ministers, presidential advisors, and the Ankara governor. The following are the agreement highlights: Defense Cooperation, Economy and Trade Joint Committee, Halal Quality Assurance, Cooperation in Higher Education, Cooperation in Media and Communication, Cooperation in Diaspora Policy, Cooperation in Education, Cooperation between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs.
President Erdoğan of Türkiye, I want to say on behalf of Nigeria, the Federal Republic, thank you and the people of Turkey, the government, the reception, the openness, the warmness that you've accorded myself and the delegation since we got here. And thank you for listening here, willing to collaborate, willing to help, willing to work together to promote freedom, stability, and prosperity, shared prosperity across the world. What is very important to the two countries being discussed: trade, business, avoidance of taxation, no restrictions, lowering a given opportunity to those who are ready to learn, work, and prosper. How do we build an inclusive economy together? That's what we discuss. How do we reform and get everybody, vulnerable people in particular, involved in our economies? How do we develop this country, give peace and stability to the world, and particularly the necessary peace and stability of the continent of Africa?
The Nigerian Senate has resumed plenary following the Christmas and New Year recess, with a commitment to fast-track pending legislation aimed at addressing the nation's economic and security challenges. The Senate, upon resumption, received 3 letters from President Bola Tinubu, including a request to increase the number of appeal court justices and a major overhaul of the health sector's legal framework. News Centre's Sagie Ibrahim reports from the National Assembly.
After weeks of recess, the Red Chamber roared back to life on Tuesday.
That will promote the unity, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, set the tone for the new legislative year, highlighting urgent national issues that demand immediate intervention. Key among them, the twin crises of insecurity and looming food shortages. He warned that projections indicate millions could face severe hunger in 2026, hence the need for the parliament to move beyond rhetoric.
As we return, we are mindful that events did not pause in our absence, neither must our sense of duty pause. We must also respond with urgency to the warning by the United Nations that as many as 35 million Nigerians may face hunger this year.
Resumption also came with a heavy legislative workload from the executive. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, read 3 letters from President Bola Tinubu, one seeking to amend the Court of Appeal Act to increase the number of justices from 70 to 110 and establish an alternative dispute resolution center to decongest the courts. In another correspondence, the President requested the confirmation of Justice Oyewole Kayode to the Supreme Court bench. And finally, the executive forwarded 24 health sector bills for consideration aimed at reforming existing laws and streamlining the Governing Council of Health Institutions, which the presidency describes as over-bloated. Before adjourning to Wednesday, January 28, lawmakers observed a minute of silence in honor of the late Senator Godiya Akwashiki.
As the lawmakers resume from recess, their activities are cut out for them. Now, aside the executive bills that's been forwarded by the president, they are expected to deliberate upon key amendments and also key bills, including the constitutional amendment bill, the Electoral Act amendment, which is expected ahead of the 2027 general election, and also the 2026 budget, which is expected to be deliberated upon and passed so as to ensure fiscal responsibility in the year 2026. For now, eyes are on the National Assembly and these senators to see what next steps will be. From the National Assembly, Abuja, for News Central, Sagie Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sagie, for that coverage. Let's now discuss this judiciary matter with a legal practitioner, Abdul Karim Musa. Thank you very much for being here. Considering the fact that the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court has been extended to include prosecution of terrorism-related offenses, transnational organized crimes, and other matters touching directly on national security and the increasing crime rate, do you think the increase from 70 to 110 of judges in that court is enough to deal with these current realities?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Yes, as the question of whether the increment or the increase of the number of judges and justices would be beneficial to the judiciary and the entirety of Nigerians, my answer is yes, because the courts are overburdened with a lot of cases, and the number of judges and justices that we have currently are not able to address the enormity of suits that are being filed on a daily basis in the Nigerian courts. However, the concern I have an anxious moment as to the appointment of more judges, and that concern is with regards to the welfare of the already existing judges and how well equipped the already existing courts are. So the question is, do we need more judges and justices? Of course, we do need more judges and justices, but then do we have the capacity to equip the judges and justices and the courts that we are going to appoint these judges and justices to, that question is a very germane question that the executive must consider in proceeding to appoint more judges and justices to the various courts.
I agree. That's very germane. But as part of the Court of Appeal's Golden Jubilee, the president of the court recently constituted 16 panels comprising 48 justices drawn from different divisions nationwide to hear 360 pending appeals in Lagos division alone. And with the proliferation of cases and appeals, don't you think the increase in number of justices at the Court of Appeal is a drop in the ocean?
Yes, certainly it's a drop in the ocean, and you use the right description for the word, for the circumstance, because the number of cases we have, because people do not just go to court to just get judgment. People go to court to get justice, and to get justice, there's need for dedicated consideration of the matters that are being filed. And if the justices must dedicatedly consider the cases that are being filed by litigants, they require some amount of time. But considering the number of cases that they are embodying with, they would need to speed up the proceeding. And we are familiar with the saying that justice rushed is justice crushed. So in a bid to meet up with the number of cases they have, they are not able to deliver as outstanding judgments as they would have if they had a limited number of cases and more time to attend to those cases. So the number of justices we have, the number that is intended to be appointed is nothing compared to the workforce or
Okay, I think we... Hello, Abdul Karim, can you hear me? I think we lost that connection. We'll try to reconnect. But in the meantime, we will continue with the bulletin. Coming up, Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo marks 2 years in office with a landmark project. Details coming up. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. President Tinubu signs bilateral agreement with Turkey on day 2 of his diplomatic visit in Ankara. Presidency seeks Senate amendment of Federal High Court and Court of Appeal Acts to increase number of justices and judges. And Governor Walz meets border czar, calls for end to deadly shootings as patrol agents set to depart Minneapolis. The House of Representatives has summoned the Auditor General of the Federation, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Agriculture to provide detailed explanation and documentation of expenditure of funds released for agricultural programs between 2015 and 2025. This is as the House Ad Hoc Committee investigating agricultural subsidies, intervention funds, aids and grant programs expressed dissatisfaction with the inability of the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation to provide audit reports on several agricultural subsidy and interventions within the period under review.
Team will make the year 2026 more fulfilling. There are targets, there are milestones that we hope to achieve in this year. One of them is the Electoral Act. In the coming days, I'm sure the Senate will do their part, having done our part. And if there are still any work left on the Electoral Act, we'll make sure we'll fine-tune it this week. Let me also mention that this year, another milestone, will be prioritizing certain provisions of the Constitution that we have subjected to amendments. And that will take place in the coming weeks. The budget is currently before us, And I'm sure that with your support from various committees of the House, that will do due diligence in making sure that the budget
go to your seat, Prince.
becomes a working
Speaker
instrument for the MDS and for the nation at large.
Let's go to Kogi State. The state government has commissioned a new audit house in Lokoja, strengthening its framework for monitoring public funds. The facility, unveiled as part of Governor Usman Ododo's second year in office, was commissioned by former Delta State Governor James Ibori. News Center's Mono Balagbobo reports.
The Kogi State Audit House is unveiled in Lokoja, bringing together the offices of the state and local government auditors general under one complex. Governor Usman Ododo says the facility is a deliberate investment in accountability and institutional strengthening.
The benefits of this facility are far-reaching. It will enhance operational efficiency, promote inter-audit collaboration, improve record management and digital transition, provide training and conference facility, and ultimately strengthen the credibility of public financial oversight in Kogi State. By investing in audit infrastructure, we are investing in fiscal discipline, service delivery, and public trust.
Special guest at the occasion, former Delta State Governor James Ibori, who commissioned the facility, charged the Kogi State government to ensure it is effectively used to serve the people. For the audit institutions, the responsibility now lies in translating the investment into accountability.
The Office of Auditor for the Federation is providing technical support on a pro bono basis without professional fees, as part of our national responsibility to strengthen sub-national audit institutions. The Office of Auditor General for Kogi State, on its part, will bear the logistic, operational and administrative responsibility necessary to ensure smooth implementation.
We shall follow every governor, every resources deployed to its final intended destination, and we shall report to you accordingly.
We assured you that this investment accountability will yield lasting dividends in transparency, financial prudence, and improved governance across all local councils.
With the facility now in place, state officials say it will enhance audit work and processes, strengthening accountability across the state. In Kogi for News Central, Mono Balagbobo.
The National Industrial Court has ordered workers under the Joint Union Action Committee to suspend their ongoing strike. The injunction follows a suit filed by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and the FCT administration, seeking to restrain union leaders, including Chairman Rifkatu Lotia and Secretary Abdullahi Saleh, from continuing industrial action. Justice E.D. Subilim ruled that while the dispute qualifies as a trade matter, the right to strike is not absolute once referred to the court. The injunction will remain in force pending a full hearing. The case has been adjourned for substantive hearing on March 23, 2026.
We commend the court for making an order for the stopping of this strike, restraining the workers from going on strike or continue with the strike. I think this is commendable because it's going to give the parties opportunity to discuss, and then the order is given according to the law. And then whether or not it's going to bind other unions, yes, other unions are there. There is always a process of commencing strike. This one commenced, there was negotiation going on, and they went on strike. And court has told them to go back. Our plea to the union is that they should allow industrial harmony, they should go back to work, and give opportunity for mediation.
Whatever that is the case, the workers are law-abiding citizens. We are going to advise them to respect the court. The one good thing is that the court has also mandated that we should commence, it's not as an advice that we should commence mediation in line with the law. Now that we are in court, we are going to do a formal application where the media will also be part of it, because they have been doing their best trying to reach out to the minister, but the minister refused to see them, and they went on strike, which is the only instrument a worker, an employee can use to express his grievances. And my lord said, since the matter is in court, matter cannot be in court, and you continue to strike. Call off your strike, go back to work while we adjudicate on it.
Meanwhile, the Federal Capital Territory Administration has ordered all workers to resume duties from Wednesday following a court directive suspending their strike. The instruction was issued by the acting head of service, who directed all permanent secretaries and heads of departments and agencies to ensure compliance across secretariats and affiliated offices. The decision follows an order of the National Industrial Court in Abuja, which directed that the strike declared by the Joint Union Action Committee to halt with immediate effect. FCTA management says attendance registers must be maintained as staff return to work while assuring employees of continued engagement on welfare concerns. Now, Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, PINL, the surveillance company overseeing the eastern corridor of the Trans-Niger Pipeline, says it is aligning its operations with the federal government's goal of producing 2.5 million barrels of crude oil daily by 2026. At PINL Stakeholders Engagement Forum in Bayelsa State, the General Manager, Community and Stakeholders Relations, revealed that the company's strategic plans to boost crude oil production in support of the federal government's 2.5 million barrels per day target, including strengthening ties with security agencies and the NNPCL to achieve the goal. News Central's Bola Festus has more.
Pipeline last year yielded positive results. PINL's management emphasized that every protected barrel matters, and so do the communities.
The improved performance was attributed to stronger gas output, full pipeline availability, and steady domestic fuel supply, which helped offset challenges in crude oil production. This tells us one clear story. Every barrel protected matters, and every community that safeguards hydrocarbon infrastructure contributes directly to national development.
Regardless of the increased output recorded in 2025, PINL says boots must remain on the ground to meet the 2026 crude oil production targets set by the NNPCL. The surveillance company therefore promises to sustain collaborations with concerned stakeholders.
While revenue remains strong, there is need to sustain same. Hence, pipeline security is not optional. Rather, it is existential. Production performance and the role of pipeline stability. This stability is not accidental. It is the direct result of infraction-free operations along the TNP in the whole of Bayelsa. Community-led intelligence and surveillance, sustained collaboration between PIN, host communities, and security agencies. NNPC Limited is intensifying collaboration with partners through year-end and into 2026 to improve production performance, maximize infrastructure uptime, and maintain high facility maintenance standards across all assets. PIN and our host communities remain central to achieving this objective.
Despite being a hub of oil production, several oil-producing communities still struggle to access petroleum products, particularly within riverine and hard-to-reach areas. However, while giving feedback on PINL's operations, major stakeholders in Bayelsa State urged the federal government to consider developing fuel stations in rural coastal regions, maintaining that these would largely curb the peddling and production of illegally refined petroleum products.
There aren't standard, functional filling stations in the creeks of the Niger Delta. So if you bring petroleum products from wherever to Bayelsa State, you get to Yenagua waterside, you will stop. You will offload it into a boat, into a barge, into a container to take it to Fropa or Lobia. And so automatically, everybody there will be buying petroleum products for what? Higher than normal. Higher than those in Sokoto, higher than those in Lagos, higher than those in Birnin Kebbi, higher than those in Makoti. Don't you see that that is some tension you have created? Why won't the federal government know that if today we have petroleum products available in the creeks of the Niger Delta, then nobody will be interested in buying what is called bullfire. So bullfire ends.
Across the Niger Delta, youth make up the bulk of individuals and groups agitating for a better deal regarding oil infrastructure. Stakeholders, however, called for the inclusion of youth in decision-making.
So while we see peace and zero tolerance for pipeline vandalism in Bayelsa State, it is a collective effort. The major actors are the youths who have decided to embrace peace and working with the pipeline infrastructure company. Not be so. It is therefore very important that this year, if there is anything better than zero, I speak on behalf of the youth that it will be 0, 0, 0.
While the company reported zero bunkering incidents in Bayelsa State in 2025 through improved community intelligence, it hinted that it will maintain high facility standards across its coverage areas to maximize its potential. In Bayelsa State, for News Central, Bola Festus.
Still ahead, Rwanda drags UK to International Court of Arbitration over migration dispute. These and more stories when we come back. Thank you for staying with us. The Rwandan government has filed a legal action at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague against the United Kingdom over unpaid funds linked to a cancelled migrant relocation agreement. Rwanda says the UK failed to honor financial commitments under the deal signed by former British administration to transfer some asylum seekers and support Rwanda's economy. The agreement was scrapped in 2024 after a change in government, with UK authorities stating that more than £200 million in future payments would no longer be made. Now, away from that, let's tell you that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has met border czar Tom Homan and repeated his calls to end the campaign of retribution in the state. A federal judge has ordered acting ICE Director Todd Leons to appear in a Minnesota court on Friday to explain why an immigration detainee has not had a bond hearing in the court-ordered time frame. Meanwhile, President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, has arrived in Minneapolis to lead the immigration crackdown. Trump says Homan will speak with local officials and describes recent events as a very sad situation. With Homan's arrival, Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino and some of his agents will leave the city on Tuesday. Joseph Babalola is an immigration lawyer. He joins me now from Atlanta, Georgia for this conversation. Thank you for being here. Let's begin with shootings, deadly shootings. Why always Minneapolis?
Well, that's a very good question. Minneapolis, because it just happens to be a city and also a state that is currently Democratic. And there's some political persuasions that is actually going on right now. It actually did not start in Minneapolis. At the time, it was Chicago. And at the time, it was another state. So basically, the Trump administration is just going state by state in an effort to kind of put the drumbeats of immigration front and center for the upcoming midterm elections.
Democrats have called for Trump to fire Homeland Security Secretary over the crackdown. Why did Trump allow the situation to degenerate to this point, in your view?
I don't think that was actually the intention. I think things just pretty much just went out of hand. If you trace things from the very beginning, this was meant to be an immigration crackdown, specifically in Minneapolis. And then it mushroomed into different things because people just stood their grounds. You know, they started going out on protest, and one thing led to the other. And you had a couple of people that unfortunately lost their lives as a result of this crackdown. So you can see that things have slowly just kind of morphed from one thing to another. So that's pretty much what's going on right now.
Governor Walz has called for an end to what he described as campaign of retribution in the state. And the Border Patrol official and his agents are set to depart. Would you say too late?
It's not exactly too late. I would say it's late, but it's not too late. And the reason is I'd rather have the Trump administration actually do something than do nothing. And why do I say that? Because people's lives are at stake. There are businesses in Minnesota right now that have shut down for the past couple of weeks. They have absolutely no business. There are schools that have also been shut down as a result of all this. People's lives have been upended. So I think that it's about time that all the stakeholders actually sit down. As you're aware, there was a conversation that actually held between President Trump and also Governor Walz, and also between President Trump and the mayor of Minnesota as well. So all these conversations are going on, and our hope is that eventually there's a drawdown and Minnesota can actually go back to normal.
The way Trump himself has behaved has raised some criticism, but how do you think he and his administration has responded to criticism of its immigration enforcement tactics in Minnesota?
I think there are missed opportunities on both sides, and I think that if it had to be done again, I'm sure that they would do things differently. I think that in terms of the overhandedness, right, of all the agents and the tactics that was actually used, you can see that you probably went over the board. And I think that some of it maybe has to do with training. These are people that weren't actually trained, right, to be able to handle crowds, to be able to handle situations. And training really matters. So if you give a person firearms without the necessary training, there's a tendency for there to be mistakes. And in this case, there were deadly mistakes that was actually made. So I do feel that eventually there will be changes that will be made, and eventually there'll be a drawdown, right, of all the agents that is all over Minnesota right now to the greater good of the entire state.
We know now that Border Czar has arrived in Minnesota. Tom Homan, what do you think his role should be now?
He has to be the adult in the room. He has to be able to speak directly to the governor, speak directly to the mayor, and speak directly to concerned individuals across the state, and let them know and give them assurances that ICE is there for a specific purpose. I understand that, under the auspices of the Department of Homeland Security and definitely under the auspices of Department of Justice. There's nothing that they're actually doing really that is really unconstitutional. It just has to do with the way, the method, and the manner in which they're actually doing it. So it really has to be the adult in the room. It has to be very diplomatic, and it has to be able to go in, calm things down, and be able to return Minnesota to normal.
Joseph, thank you for speaking with us.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Have a good afternoon.
Good night from here. Tonight returns with business, sports, and entertainment. Stay with us. Nigeria's total gas production rose by 7.9% in 2025, increasing by about 197.7 billion standard cubic feet (SCF) to 2.706 trillion SCF, according to the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. The growth was driven largely by non-associated gas, which expanded 17.1% to 1.25 trillion SCF, while associated gas rose only 1.1% to 1.456 trillion SCF. Total gas utilization also increased by 8.1% to 2.5 trillion SCF, improving efficiency slightly to 92.4%. However, gas flaring rose 5.8% to 204 billion, even as its share of total output fell to 7.5%, reflecting ongoing monetization challenges. And the Nigerian Customs Service posted a strong revenue performance in 2025, collecting 7.281 trillion naira, surpassing its 6.584 trillion naira target by 697 billion naira and recording a 19% year-on-year growth. The Comptroller General, Bashir Adewale Adeniyi, attributed the gain to tighter controls and new digital systems. The agency also seized over 2,500 illicit consignments valued at 59 billion naira. However, NCS warned that port inefficiencies and long cargo dwell times cost Nigeria about 3 trillion naira annually, as highlighted in the newly launched time-release study. The Nigerian exchange NGX closed marginally higher as the all-share index ended at 165,713.82 points, up 0.12%, signaling a cautious but positive market tone. The market capitalization stood at 10.6 trillion naira, reflecting a modest gain in investor sentiment amid mixed sectorial movements. Let's now move to the sectors. Sectoral performance was broadly mixed, with insurance leading the gains at plus 1.23%, while banking dipped 0.11%, underscoring ongoing pressure in financial stocks. Consumer goods and industrial goods recorded moderate upticks of 0.46% and 0.09% respectively, while oil and gas was nearly flat, with a 0.02% increase. Overall, the market showed restrained optimism as investors weighed sector-specific dynamics against broader economic uncertainties. And that does it for business news. Up next is sports with Favor.
And in sports, Nigeria's senior men's handball team, the Golden Arrows, suffered a heavy 48-22 loss to Egypt in their 27th Men's Handball African Nations Cup quarterfinal clash in Kigali. Trailing 24-10 at halftime, Nigeria were outscored 24-12 in the second half, marking a second consecutive main round defeat. The loss drops the Golden Arrow to third in their group, severely denting their chances of reaching the semi-finals. Now, beyond the immediate campaign, the defeat also weakens Nigeria's prospect of early qualification for the 2027 IHF Men's World Championships in Germany. And now to football. The Nigerian Football Federation, NFF, has expressed deep sorrow over the death of Mr. Sunday Ndidi, father of Super Eagles captain Wilfred Ndidi, who died in a road accident in Delta State. Ndidi reportedly lost his life after being hit by a vehicle in Umunede near Agbo. The tragedy comes shortly after Wilfred Ndidi's return from the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, where he led Nigeria to a bronze medal finish. The NFF described the loss as devastating, noting the midfielder's recent commitment to both country and the club. The Federation extended condolences to Ndidi, his family and loved one, offering prayers and support during the difficult time. Still talking football, Spain insists it will host the final of the 2030 Men's World Cup, according to the president of the Spanish Football Federation, Rafael Luzon. Now, the tournament, which will be co-hosted by Spain, Portugal and Morocco, will open with 3 historic matches in Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay to mark the 100th anniversary of the World Cup. Morocco has shown interest in staging the final, but Luzon insisted Spain will lead the event and host the climax, citing the country's proven organizational capacity. While he did not name a venue, Madrid's Santiago Bernabeu and Barcelona's Camp Nou are widely considered the front runners. Morocco's preferred venue is the Grand Stade Hassan II in Casablanca, set to be completed in 2028 with a capacity of around 115,000. FIFA, which has the final authority on venue selection, has yet to comment. And some transfer updates. Super Eagles forward Salim Fago Lawal has completed a move to Czech side Victoria Plzeň from Croatian club NK Istra in what is understood to be a club record transfer for the Croatian outfit. The 23-year-old, a former Nigeria under-20 international, joins Plzeň after several days of negotiations with the deal reportedly valued at 2.4 million euros and rising to 3 million euros through performance-related add-ons. Lawal arrives as an attacking replacement following the departure of fellow Nigerian striker Rafiu Durosimi, who left Plzeň earlier in the transfer window to join Italian side Pisa for 9 million euros. Lawal has signed a 3.5-year contract and will wear the number 70 shirt at the club. He was part of the Super Eagles team that claimed the bronze medal at the just concluded Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. And that wraps it up on Sports Update. I'm Favor Itua. Entertainment is up next with Sam Dandy.
In entertainment, popular TikTok star Habib Hamzat, aka Pella, has revealed that he may stop attending university, saying school is beginning to affect his income. In a viral message, the influencer explained that spending long hours in class without making money feels unproductive and that he could return to school later in life. The statement comes just days after Pella announced his admission into a private Lagos university where he planned to study law, partly to respond to critics who mocked his educational background. While some fans support his focus on his career, others are urging him not to abandon formal education. On the international scene, Warner Bros. Film Sinners is enjoying a strong award-season run, earning major recognition across multiple ceremonies, including nominations at the 2026 BAFTA Film Awards, placing it among the year's top contenders. With 13 nods, Sinners earns the highest nomination by a black director in BAFTA history and will see Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan attend as first-time nominees. One battle after another received 14 nominations across major categories, including acting, directing, screenplay, and technical awards, with Leonardo DiCaprio up for Best Lead Actor and Tiana Taylor for Best Supporting Actress. The BAFTA Film Awards take place on February the 22nd at London's Royal Festival Hall. Well, entertainment is always buzzing, and this Pella story, I'm not going to lie, quite interesting. I would have loved to ask Felicity about it, but you know what? I do think education is important. It's a foundation for all of us, and I do hope that he can, still stay in school. I mean, we want to see a more civilized Pella, if I can say that. Well, my name is Sam Dandy. This is the Biggest Stories Entertainment. This is bye for now.
And that's the news tonight. But before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. President Tinubu has signed bilateral agreements with Turkey on day 2 of his diplomatic visit in Ankara. Presidency has sought Senate amendment of Federal High Court and Court of Appeal Acts to increase number of justices and judges. We also brought you news that Governor Walz has met border czar, called for end to deadly shooting as patrol agents set to depart Minneapolis. To send your eyewitness report to the number being displayed now on your screen. We'd also love to hear from you on socials. That's at News Central TV. You can watch live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. As always, have a good night.